What is going on, everyone? You are now tuned into the TRUENORTH.BET NFL podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham, and I'm excited to be back to give you all of your updates and, of course, a little recap and, of course, preview to the NFL season as we have it right now. Okay, so let's get right into it because there's been a lot of movement, a lot of traction, um, pretty much a lot of people that are saying they're Monday night quarterbacks, so on and so forth. But what I can say to start out is that we have a few players that are contenders for MVP. I'm going to tell you right now, Lamar Jackson didn't get paid. TD Bank, they call it the bank, in Baltimore. He's playing like an MVP caliber player right now. He has 4 touchdowns in the air, 1 touchdown running. He is incredible against a Bill Belichick defense in New England. Getting the very crucial win there is incredible. Let me just tell you this right now. Lamar Jackson is the leading touchdown passer in the NFL as it currently stands right now, and he's the 4th leading rusher in the NFL. Just take that in. Leading the league in touchdown passes out of everyone: Burrow, Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and he's the 4th leading rusher in the entire league. So he's really trying to make a statement to his organization as well to the league, saying that he is him. He's that guy, and he's coming for his crown. He's coming for his money fairly soon because, once again, he is just absolutely incredible. And they get the win over the New England Patriots 37-26. But it all comes down to Lamar Jackson. Simply be humble. You have to love everything he says, right? Everything he does, he's doing all for the team. He gets knocked on for being an athlete, not necessarily a quarterback, but he's improved his arm strength. He's gained muscle. He's gotten bigger, but he's still just as fast. He still can't be touched. And to be honest with you, the Baltimore Ravens, without that collapse in Miami, should be 3-0 right now. They were up by 21 points in the first half, even more at some point, running ruckshot on the Miami Dolphins. And all of a sudden, they lose that game because of a furious comeback from Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and some busted coverages from the defense there. So that's a story we can definitely wait for. We can definitely read into as we go. But Lamar Jackson right now is the best player in NFL. He went 18 for 29 for 218 yards, 4 touchdowns to the air, 1 INT. But overall, he's been incredible. He's a passer rating of 110. He's been incredible from the start of the year, right? Giving the ball to Devin Duvernay, getting Rashad Bateman in space. His awareness, many people might think that he's throwing guys not open, but he's throwing behind guys. So he's not leading them, but he's doing that on purpose to get them to not get killed by defenders. And he's making sure that he reads his progressions without even turning his body. So as a quarterback, especially me as a quarterback in high school, you see a lot of quarterbacks that go through the progression. When they go 1, 2, 3, they switch little areas. Lamar Jackson can get the ball, and on the best quarterbacks in the NFL technically do this. They usually get the ball. They can take 3 steps, go through their first progression, 1, 2, 3, and know where to go. He does that in a millisecond. Well, not a millisecond. I would say 1 second at least to go through progressions. And of course, he throws a great pass to the likes of Devin Duvernay in the corner. There was a great pass to Mark Andrews, who's his guy. Right now, Mark Andrews is the leading touchdown getter in the NFL at the tight end position. And it's because Lamar Jackson and him have a great connection, and they're virtually unstoppable. You can't put one guy on Mark Andrews. You need to make sure you have complementary players that are around them to see exactly what's going on. But I'm telling you right now, he didn't get paid in the offseason. All right. They might franchise tag him, but really soon, Bill Belichick even spoke about it. A number of teams will be vying for his service in the offseason. If he requests a trade, he's out of there, and it's going to be really hard for Baltimore to keep him. It could be one of those things where Baltimore doesn't have the money necessarily for it. So that could be something that we can definitely keep our eyes on. But let's hope that Lamar Jackson does get paid, because if you really see it, he wants Deshaun Watson money. And to be honest with you, he's achieved more than Deshaun Watson, right? He's got an MVP. He's just achieved more in general than him. He has 30 less charges in general than Deshaun Watson. He deserves that money, right? And it really comes down to the ownership in Baltimore giving them that money as we go, right? So that's one thing there. Another MVP candidate they had was Josh Allen, because one thing I'll say is the last 6 games that the Buffalo Bills have lost have all been 1-score games, but every game that they've won the past 7 games have been double-digit or multi-score games in general, which means they're beating teams by more than 7 points. Whenever it's a close game, Sean McDermott and company have trouble pretty much closing games out. And that's something that needs to be shored up before they get to the playoffs, because it's going to be really, really tough for them to compete if that's the case. But Josh Allen still had 400 yards through the air, 400 yards in general, 42 for 63. He threw the ball 63 times in the game. They had the possession. They had the ball for 40 minutes throughout the game, but still end up losing. The Miami Dolphins only had 37 plays the entire game. Tua Tagovailoa goes out with apparently a back injury, even though he was wobbly and hit his head on the ground with his helmet. But he was still went 13 for 18, 186 yards, 1 touchdown, whereas Josh Allen went 400 yards through 63 times, completed 42 of his passes, 2 touchdowns, no INTs, just had some gaffes at certain points. And it really comes down to the fact that the Miami Dolphins are for real. I'll say that for all the haters out there, other people that are huge Dolphins fans, get on me because I'm a Bengals guy. But and of course we'll see Bengals very soon against the Dolphins fairly soon. But they are for real. The defense are really good. They're able to stop the run. That's a major part to Mike McDaniels, just the way they put together their defense. They do a really good job of having those guys in space to make plays for the running back or at the running back, right? They've done a really good job about that. So I'm really impressed to see exactly what they've done. Miami Dolphins right now are 3-0. Oh my goodness, they actually are 3-0. They have not lost yet because they came back last week against the Baltimore Ravens. They're first in the AFC East. I never thought I'd ever say that. Tua Tagovailoa is playing really well. Mike McDaniels has them getting the ball out really quick to Jalen Waddle, to Mike Gesicki, to their backup running tight end, to Tyreek Hill. They've just done a really good job. And of course, Chase Edmonds has done a really good job rushing the ball as well, too. That's a really good pickup for them. I just think they've done the right thing. They have an offensive-minded head coach. They are 3-0. Some may say they're peaking a little bit too early, but I say they're catching their stride. They're getting to where they want to be. They won 21-19. I think it's a large part to their defense in doing a good job. Shout out to Javon Holland from Coquitlam, BC, player on the Miami Dolphins, playing his butt off right now, being very, very useful for the Miami Dolphins. He's unreal. And another Canadian that just is lighting it up down south. And there are a few guys that have been doing quite a bit when it comes to that. Another guy that I'll say needs a shout out in general is my namesake. And I'm going to say Brandon Graham from the Philadelphia Eagles. Unbelievable. He's been, after coming back from a major injury last year, he's been unreal, right? From the game, among the 9 sacks, he had 2.5. Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, and Josh Sweat each had a sack and a half. But Brandon Graham is just moneyed on the game. Davante Smith had an incredible game in general. I would say a career high 169 yards, a touchdown, and then 8 passes caught by Davante Smith. He's the better Davante on this day, better than Davante Adams, even though Davante Adams is killing it for all fantasy owners. But the Philadelphia Eagles are 3-0 as well, too. First in NFC East, 24-8 against the Washington Commanders, who are not going to be good this year at all. And to be honest, I don't know any real life Washington Commanders fans, but they're a very sad franchise with Carson Wentz there. They're not necessarily going to do too great. Another team that may not do too great for the rest of the season is the Denver Broncos, because I don't really see the creativity at all from these guys. We do have Russell Wilson there that's made $250 million, but as Eli Manning said in the Manning cast last night, they probably should have given the puncher $250 million, because really and truly they have not done a really good job getting the ball to their guys in space. They get the ball to Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, but they can't run the ball. They're not doing a really good job of mixing it up. Russell Wilson's not necessarily throwing the ball into the middle of the field at all. He's throwing to the sidelines. I know Tim Patrick's out for the year, but the creativity they've had, a lot of what they're putting together with Nathaniel Hackett, it's not really working. Nathaniel Hackett coming as the offensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers, now going as the head coach after the gaffe in Seattle in the first game by not calling a timeout before running on Brandon McManus for a 64-yard field goal. After that, he hired a operations coordinator, and he's pretty much said it straight out, and that's like, give him some respect. He's pretty much said that, hey, like, I really messed up. I need another person in my mind, of course, my number guy on the staff that can tell me when to go for it, when not to, when to call a timeout, when not to, because he's used to simply just sitting back and being the offensive coordinator. He's not used to being the guy or being the main player or the main coach for the Denver Broncos. So that's something to look at. They end up beating the San Francisco 49ers 11-10. I cannot believe he said that. It literally sounds like a basketball game. Not even a basketball game. It sounds like a really high scoring soccer game or a baseball game in general that's gone to 9 innings or extras. Denver Broncos win 11-10. It's a real score. Definitely the worst Sunday night game I've ever watched in my life. I cannot believe I even watched that game. But San Fran with Trey Lance out, Jimmy Garoppolo's in. But you got to understand with Jimmy Garoppolo, they've come out and said, and even Brendan Shanahan has said that they didn't give him a playbook during the summer. So you have to understand that Shanahan, Garoppolo now, because Trey Lance is out for the year with an ankle injury, make a break, they're going with plays that they've ran in years past. He didn't get a chance to work too much with the San Francisco 49ers in the preseason. He's just jumping right back into it, right? He had a really good game in the first game to win that in general in the first game. But other than that, he hasn't necessarily had a really good showing. And that was a really bad game with execution. They couldn't really stretch the field. Denver's defense isn't bad. They have some players on there, so it's obviously tough to move the ball, but they'll be back, I think, with more weeks. Jimmy Garoppolo will definitely be a guy that will be there and play a lot better as we go. The Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, Cincinnati Bengals are where they win 27-12 for their first game, not dropping the 1-3. Joe Burrow, obviously being the most sacked quarterback in the league with Daniel Jones, still went 23 of 36 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. Joe Flacco had 2 INTs, 85 yards. It was one of those games where the Cincinnati Bengals can move the ball. T. Higgins gets knocked out. Having him back in the fold was definitely a plus for the Bengals. They hopefully have him back soon, but I think he's concussed. The Bengals are playing the Miami Dolphins in Thursday Night Football, so that's going to be interesting to see fairly soon as we near that game that will be in Cincinnati. And we'll see if the Miami Dolphins can go 4-0, but they had to win that game. Teams that go even 1-3, it's really tough for them to get back and get to the playoffs. But now, because you have an extra week in the 17th week, you have a little bit more of a chance to kind of, just creep your way back into playoff contention. But with the Bengals, it's more so they sign new guys to be on the line. It's just one of those deals where defense necessarily can't get out of their own way, and offense, they take too much time to get back into the game, and it has to be something that they're established from the start. But now they're getting everyone's best shot because they have proven themselves to be a formidable team in the NFL and in the AFC especially. So they're getting everyone's best shot, and I think that's more of an adjustment period. With the Bengals, they should have won week 1 against the Steelers. They should have won even last week as well. It's just one of those things where it just happens, right? They're 0-2. Now they're 27-12. They're better than Dallas Cowboys. I believe they're better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just these games that's why you play the game. And that's the reason why the Jacksonville Jaguars literally went into LA and still won 38-10, beat them by 28 points, right? You play the game. Doesn't matter who you have initially. It can be totally wrong. It can be just a bad spot. And teams like Jacksonville Jaguars go in and beat them. Trevor Lawrence actually looks like the quarterback that everyone believed he could actually be, which is a guy that will get the ball out to Zay Jones, to Marvin Jones, to Laviska Shenault, to ETN, so on. So Robinson, they ran the ball really well as well too. They have talent, and now they're putting it together with Doug Peterson at the fold. They just needed a competent coach that was able to spread the field a little bit more and give different play designs. And he's been a guy. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. Jacksonville has what it takes now. They've done all right. And of course, right now he's won 2 games. That is a tie for the most wins that the Jacksonville Jaguars coach has had since 2006. Just think about that. Right now, Urban Meyer, Doug Pearson are tied for as many wins as they ever had as for a Jacksonville Jaguars coach, right? So that's incredible to see how that's happened and go from there. But talk about a team that's disappointed as well, because there's so many disappointments. I guess one of my number one disappointments, and I'm not too surprised, is the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay. The Las Vegas Raiders with Derek Carr, another guy that I'm not too fond of, not really too fond of a fan of his game in general. It's just one of those things where we have Josh McDowell's in the fold right now, but Josh McDowell's has to get used to coaching a Derek Carr. Okay, Derek Carr that holds the ball too long sometimes. Derek Carr that fumbles the ball too much sometimes. They're supposed to beat Arizona at home. They lose that in heartbreaking fashion. All right. They lose to the LA Chargers as well in LA. They played three tough teams. Don't get me wrong; these are not easy teams or teams you can just go in and stomp. They're 0-3 because they lost 24 to 19, sorry. They lost 29 to 23 in OT, and then they lost 24 to 22 to the Tennessee Titans. And it's one of those things where they're losing close games, but you have to learn how to win. Josh McDaniels came out and says they need to learn how to win in those games. And then Derek Carr says we have to learn how to win in the fourth quarter. So they're both saying the same thing. And it's the same thing that they need to learn how to win. So it's almost like you have to learn how not to lose. And there's so many different things you can say. And a lot of podcasts have been joking around about that. But Derek Carr, I don't believe he's good enough. I've just never believed that he's 91, right? He's a 91, just like me. But Derek Carr, like stretching the field, being creative, get the ball out really quick. He's a warrior. Don't get me wrong. He's a leader for sure. He does the right thing as a leader for your team. But he's another one of those guys that even when Matt Ryan had Julio Jones and Roddy White, for instance, he still got to a Super Bowl, right? He still got the team there. I don't even think Derek Carr is as good as prime Matt Ryan, right? Not at all. And he has Davante Adams. Davante Adams is on my fantasy football team. Thank goodness he is, because he scores every week. He makes the toughest catches. He's the best release in football. But he should have really stayed in Green Bay. Really, truly, we understand that Green Bay is a regular season team. Aaron Rodgers, after losing the first game, coming out to the Minnesota Vikings, you see that he catches stride. The guys are a little bit more used to it. Dobbs is doing a really good job. Watson's obviously picking it up a lot more. Randall Cobb is kind of looking at the Randall Cobb out of Kentucky University. I remember watching Randall Cobb at Kentucky. He was incredible. One of the like, almost like a Percy Harvin type player. He's still really good to this day and age, right? But if you want to really go back and see how good Randall Cobb was when he was younger in university, go back and watch Kentucky tape when he's at the University of Kentucky. One of the best players I've seen in college football. Like, can really do it all. He ran the Wildcat, he can cat, but he's still good right now with Aaron Rodgers, his buddy. Yes, Davante Adams should have stayed in Green Bay. They should have seen what they had this year. But you've had so many shots to go to NFC Championship with Aaron Rodgers. It hasn't happened. You've seen Aaron Rodgers put himself first at certain points. You knew you're probably going to be franchise tagged. He made a move, but it's one of those things where now he has to find a way to get into the playoffs. It's to find a way to make sure that Derek Carr can be competent enough to take them to the promised land. And I don't think he's good enough at all. I think Aaron Rodgers is good enough. I think the defense that they have is good enough, but they need to find ways to win games. And Josh McDaniels, another time full-time head coach, not doing it. Did in Denver, not doing right now. They need to win very quick. They need to get back. And teams that go 0-3 hardly make the playoffs. But once again, you have an extra week. So you have more time to kind of catch up. And lo and behold, as you see right now, they got Denver at home playing against Russell Wilson. They should win that game, but that's another game where you never know, because you never know how these teams are going to come out. They lost 3 in a row. They need to learn how to win because they have the best receiver in football, and they're not using them the way that I believe he needs to be used. I think you need to get him in space. You need to get him working different routes. You need to get him spacing, just spreading the field a little bit more, right? You have him in a stationary position. Get him the ball more. Right? He's making miraculous plays because that's just what he does. He can make a crappy situation good, but he needs to really, really find his stride. And I think Derek Carr needs to be a lot better getting the ball spread. Defense got to play better as well too, but they need to score more often. All right, we're seeing teams like Baltimore, the Bills, even the Miami Dolphins scoring the ball at will. But the Philadelphia Eagles, another 3-0 team, they've been incredible. Jalen Hurts is another guy that's kind of like an MVP contention right now. I'm not a firm believer in Jalen Hurts. I think he still needs to show a little bit more and stop rushing towards his right. But that's another team where they can score it well. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that the Las Vegas Raiders needs to have Derek Carr be better, because Mariota could start. He left Las Vegas to go start for the NFL Falcons. And to be honest with you, there are times where I see him and I'm like, was he better than Derek Carr? Obviously, that's a reach because, of course, the Falcons just won their first game against the Seahawks. But Derek Carr has to be better because no, hey, Mariota has a better record than you right now, man. He's at least 1-3. He's not 1-2. Sorry, he's not 0-3 as you see right now, like the Las Vegas Raiders. Because that's a team they can talk about forever and ever because they receive this really good player and they're not delivering at all. The Philadelphia Eagles, let me just say, they have a defense. They have AJ Brown now. Right? You have Davante Smith, who's the Heisman winner at Alabama. Heisman winner at Alabama. They finally got in the ball. You do not know how frustrating it is to have a guy with that much talent on your fantasy team and not have him produce on a daily basis in his rookie year. I started him every week, never did anything because Jalen Hurts just couldn't find a ways to get in the ball. Now they have another guy there, so he's the secondary pretty much option, and he's getting all the looks because there's going to be a lot of attention drawn towards AJ Brown. Their team is just a lot better. They have Miles Sanders. They have guys that can produce. They are a solid team, and I would not be surprised if they actually make some noise fairly soon. The Green Bay Packers win 14-12. They have a really good first half against the Buccaneers, then win that game. Desperation late, but they make it happen. The Rams come back and beat the Cardinals. Once again, Jacksonville's did a really good job against the Chargers. I'm going to say, I just want to talk about MVPs and players that are doing really well. To be honest, if these backup quarterbacks keep winning, as we have Cooper Rush in Dallas, he's pretty much 3-0 as a starter, as he won a game last year against Minnesota. He wins against the New York Giants, right? He wins against the Bengals as well. Won last year. And Jacoby Brissett, for instance, should have beat the Jets. Threw it interception late, but I think that's more on the defense that game. These backup quarterbacks keep producing and keep playing well. You never know. They could get a shot. And they can be guys that kind of play the rest of the year. Really, really depends on how everything goes and how everything kind of pans out. But these backup quarterbacks are actually producing right now. You're not seeing a drop off. I think Jacoby Brissett is one of the best backups in the league. Cooper Rush is showing he's one of the best backups in the league as well too, and that's a good thing because as Troy Aikman said, backup quarterbacks, you simply have one shot. If it can be the best job in the world because you're not really playing, you're getting paid. Like Chase Daniels made millions of dollars, millions on millions of dollars being a backup quarterback. But when you play, you have to produce. Chase Daniel was incredible at Missouri, by the way. If you want to see the reason why he's been so highly touted for a long time, he was a star at Missouri. Gets the NFL, makes millions because he's a backup quarterback and he's a serviceable backup. And that's my point. You have to be a serviceable backup. You can't ruin it. You can't go in there and just be not relied on. You need to produce. And if you produce, that means you get more opportunities to be a starter or more opportunities to be backup. And you see a lot of guys are seeing right now that they are probably backup quarterbacks and not necessarily a starting quarterback. So for instance, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is a backup quarterback, but I don't believe he's the guy in New York. I don't believe he's the one because he cannot take pressure. After watching the game against Dallas Cowboys, he can't sustain any pressure. He can't operate when there's pressure. Whereas guys like Patrick Mahomes, he loves being blitzed. If you bring the heat against him, he loves it. Of course, he's with better players and a better offensive coordinator for the most part with Eric Bieniemy. But you have Brian Daboll, and they never really drew up anything to get the ball out of his hands fairly quick. And that's the reason why Daniel Jones is getting sacked a lot, getting pressured. He's the most hit quarterback. Whereas Joe Burrow is the most sacked quarterback. He's the most hit quarterback in the league of DJ. And that's another guy that we have to look at and say, is he the guy? And that's another thing that many teams are saying. Is he the guy? Is Matt Ryan the guy? Is Derek Carr the guy? You can even go and say, that go down the entire list. Is Carson Wentz the guy in that team? Is Davis Mills the guy? Is Mac Jones the guy? Right? Mac Jones is injured. Are these guys? When I say guys, is it a quarterback that you can rely on? Because you can rely on a guy, he's not playing well. Russell Wilson you can rely on. Lamar Jackson you can rely on. Patrick Mahomes you can rely on. Josh Allen you can rely on. That's your guy. So you want to do it. Joe Burrow, even though he hasn't played great this year, he's your guy. So there's a bunch of guys in the league, but there are a lot of teams that are trying to find their guy. And when they have their guy, that means they just build around them. But it's about finding that guy. And that's why so many teams have missed in the draft. So many teams have done poorly here and there. But it really comes down to, are you that guy? And that's exactly what we're going to see. And that's what we're going to decide for the next coming weeks. Is Christian Kirk? Christian Kirk has been paid like that guy. They win 28-24. They're now at 2-1. But is he that guy? Right. So incredible football all around. It's been great. CFL is great too. We're getting to the point where we're going to the playoffs. Toronto's playing really well. Of course, Winnipeg, Calgary, all those teams are playing well. But in the NFL, it is like a dream come true. If you're watching Red Zone, there's nothing like Red Zone after. It's the heavenly day. It's the great time altogether to kind of make sure we watch a lot of NFL football. I'm your guy, Brandon Graham. If you have any questions, you let me know. I cannot wait for the Cincinnati Bengals Miami Dolphins game because that's going to be incredible. We'll see if Miami is for real, even though they beat really good teams. And we'll see if the Bengals can beat one of the hottest teams in the league. We'll see that fairly soon. But this is the TRUENORTH.BET NFL podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. I'll be talking more about MVPs, contenders, teams that are pretenders. All of that will be coming fairly soon on the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. I'm your host. Take care. Keep balling. Stay safe. Let's get it.